In this episode, I'm going to talk about something that will help you make progress. It's something I've thought a lot about when creating my programs and exercises. It's about paying attention to not just what you do, but how you do it. I'll share how I structured my courses to help students with the how part in hopes that it'll help you get unstuck or get to the next level or find more ease or simply enjoy the process more. Okay, here we go. Episode 9, How and What. Hi, I'm Karen Rohlf, and welcome to Horse Training in Harmony. This podcast is about you making progress with your horse in a way that you both can love. It's about learning how to move and be in harmony. Because yes, you really can develop a horse to be both athletic and happy. When we show up as our best selves for our horses will show up for us. So let's get started. If you work hard enough for long enough, you'll succeed, right? Well, yes. And somehow with horses, it feels more complicated than that. Because when we humans work hard, we can get very direct line in our thinking. And horses rarely move in straight lines. I know in my pastures, I see very few worn paths, but when I do, they're always a little curvy and meandering. So when succeeding with horses, we need to be focused for sure. Eye on the prize. Or as I tell my students, know your adjectives, know what you're looking for. But we can't just make it happen. We've got to finesse it. So there's this analogy to flying an airplane. And they say that an airplane is off course like 99% of the time it's in the air. The winds take it off course, and it needs to be gently guided back on course in a way that passengers don't even notice. And if the pilot keeps doing that, she'll be successful in achieving what she set out to do. So the really important skill for arriving at your destination is really about your ability to get back on course when you inevitably get off of it. Can you notice early? Can you guide things back on track with ease and do it? And do you know when you need to take more dramatic action, like if you're in a nosedive? So mastering those skills is so important with horses. I mean, the alternative is being frustrated, making sudden overcorrections, or trying to force things to stay perfect. Now, you don't want your pilot doing that, and your horse doesn't want you doing that either. So I think that's really what makes a great horseman, the ability to course correct with ease. So think of driving. I think we've all ridden with a driver who's frustrated and overcorrects and gets aggressive and rides the brake and the gas at the same time. Once I had a airport limo driver that had full-on road rage, and I was actually really scared. I had to ask him 3 times to calm down and to stop giving other drivers the finger. I mean, really. He kept blaming the other drivers, and then I had to point out, he's supposed to be the professional one, and he finally stopped. But I guess the point is, anyone who works hard enough at getting the technical skills can arrive at the destination. That limo driver did get me to where I wanted to go. But the way we get there really matters, and especially with horses, because we are bringing them along for the same ride. So I'm always trying to look for ways to explain and teach this, even as I still try to master this for myself. So I thought I'd share what I did with 3 of my main step-by-step courses, and what I did to help them with the skill of course correction. And they all involve, the way I did it with each course is a little bit different, but they all involve some sort of version of starting with the end in mind. So I hope that this is going to help you get unstuck if you're stuck, or just enjoy the process of learning a little more, that you can learn something out of me sharing this. Now, I'm going to be mentioning some of my programs. So if you have questions about any of these, you can always go to my website, dressagenaturally.net, and click on the programs tab in the top navigation. Okay, so let me start with my horsemanship course because everything starts with horsemanship. The goal is to be an excellent horseman, right? That's what we want. Someday after a lot of hard work, right? You got to work really hard and do all these different exercises and master them. Um, we definitely need skills, but the essence, the decision making, the mindset, the how you be with a horse, actually, to me, is the most important thing. I think we've probably all seen a situation where someone was having trouble with a horse and then someone else takes the horse and seemingly without really doing anything, the horse already changes, right? They're just standing there with the horse and you can see the horse making a change. So what is that? you know, I can remember getting on students' horses that were having trouble and I'd get on and I'd walk around and then, do something. And students are always like, how did you do that? It just worked. Well, because some of the important things that we're doing is not really about doing, it's just a different being. It's the mindset, it's these subtle decisions that you make differently when you're being a certain way, or it's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. So for the horsemanship course, I came up with 9 habits that excellent horsemen have. That's why I called it the Habits for Excellent Horsemanship course. So I'll just list them really quickly. I don't want to go deep into each one of them now, but they're things like partnership, clarity, having a reflex to relax, the ability to nurture curiosity, to have a sense of time and timing, and to be able to use time and timing creatively, to commit to seeking communication, but still be able to control, but to prioritize communication, to feel, to feel your horse, to think about how you feel to your horse, to use consistency and variety and to understand how to use them and the effect that each of those has on your horse. And then the 9th one is to have a sense of humor, to take things lightly, to have a lightness of spirit. So those are the habits. And the way I presented the course, I thought, okay, you can do a bunch of tasks and I can give people exercises. And if they do these exercises someday after a lot of hard work, maybe they'll gain these qualities. But here's the thing, maybe they won't, right? So a lot of courses are built around tasks and exercises and things to do. And of course, we need to have some of those things. But I kept thinking about that moment where someone just takes the horse and the horse already changes. What is that? Now, I also realized that there were some students, some people who had horses who would get great results with them, and they seemingly didn't have a lot of education, right? They didn't know a lot of exercises or techniques, but horses just tended to like them for whatever that is. So I tried to figure out, what do those people have? What are we trying to gain? And maybe let's start with that. So in my horsemanship course, it kind of drives some people crazy because the very first module is all audios. And it's a different audio on each one of those 9 habits. And so sometimes we get, well, what are this just audios? I want to see how-to videos. But I knew that if I infused people with the understanding of those 9 habits are going to change how you do things. If you have a different view of partnership, if you have a sense of curiosity when you approach an exercise, it's going to totally change how you do the exercise. So So I started with the audios, and then the next thing I do in module 2 is I give a vision. And I show a lot of videos of me and my horses doing kind of cool stuff, doing very simple things, but done with a high degree of horsemanship and quality. So my leading your horse video, right? That's pretty basic, leading your horse. But I show me leading my horse at liberty among a herd of other horses on grass, right? So very simple, but done with excellence. So the goal there was to give a lot of people ideas, because I knew a lot of students, if they had the mindset and they had the vision, there's a certain group of students who are just going to run with that and not get bogged down or disheartened by doing a particular task. This is task 1. Well, what if task 1 is hard for you? Right? But again, mindset, infuse people's brains with what it's like to be a horseman. Now see a vision, see what you can figure out on your own. And then module 3, don't worry. If the mindset and the vision didn't help you, module 3 then is the techniques. But I find if you try to figure out what you can figure out on your own, then you know exactly the piece you need. And it's not just going through tasks for the sake of doing tasks. You go, wait, hang on a second. This is working for me, but this piece, how'd she do that? And then along comes the technique. So I really encourage students to ask higher level questions when they ask. And to get to the higher level question, you've got to have done some of the work yourself. You've got to have been thinking about how you're thinking about it. You've got to be clear on your vision. Now run with it. See what you can do, see what you can't do, try some things, because then that person, when they come and ask a question, it's going to be so specific. And you're going to be able to go in, and one sentence from me is going to change everything in a much different way than if you just start doing the tasks and doing the tasks and doing the tasks. So the tasks are necessary. We got to measure things somehow. But that's how I approach it in the horsemanship course. So that's one way to approach things, is to sit back and think, how are you being? How are you thinking about things? And then go from there. What's your vision? And then get specific. What do I need to get there? How do I get from the mindset to the vision? Point A to point B. Now I need some specific information. Okay. So the next course that I thought I'd talk about is the sweet spot course. So this is the finding the sweet spot of healthy biomechanics. So I found myself again thinking, all right, I'm making this course. It's about the basics of biomechanics. I'm not the first person who's created content teaching people about biomechanics. How can I fill in some missing pieces? How can I help students get past all the places I know they're going to get stuck, right? I've been teaching dressage for decades. I know where people get stuck. So that was what was really intriguing me. Not only how do I bridge the partnership, natural horsemanship stuff with dressage, but how do I do it in a way that I can prevent people from getting stuck in all the normal places they get stuck. So, the biomechanics, creating healthy biomechanics is the very beginning of dressage. So a good place to start, if we think about beginning with the end in mind, right? Instead of just starting at training level and saying, okay, well, there's circles and, oh, got to get your horse on the bit. So let's get his head round. And instead of starting there, which a lot of people start, okay, 20-meter circle, get him on the bit. Why not start with the end in mind? So that's where you guys are going to hear me state the object of dressage a lot in these podcast episodes. And I'm going to do it again here. So what is dressage? What's the vision? What are we trying to do here? The object of dressage is the development of the horse into a happy athlete through harmonious education, resulting in a horse that's calm, loose, supple, and flexible, but also confident, attentive, and keen, thus achieving perfect understanding with his rider. So let's start there. Let's start with the end in mind. Because as you might see from reading that definition, it's not really an endpoint. In the rule book, the object of dressage is not an endpoint. It doesn't list everything in Grand Prix. It doesn't list movements. It's actually a description of how to be doing it along the way. So it's brilliant. Whoever wrote that definition, that rule for the object of dressage, realized that the object of dressage was not a destination. It wasn't a what, it was a how. It was a way to get there happily, calmly, keenly, loosely, supplely, flexibly, with understanding. So that's what I highlight in the sweet spot course, really focusing on motivating our horses to participate. That's keenness, right? Motivation. And understanding, having breaking things down into the most basic conversations and looking at the quality of those conversations and making sure our horses understand it, and keeping our horses happy by remembering that healthy biomechanics should feel good to the horse. I think it should feel good to the horse to move freely and in balance and rhythmically rather than choppy, shuffly, and loading one leg more than the other. So if we do dressage keeping in mind that these, happy, keen, loose, supple, flexible should feel good to the horse, that's one of the ways that the horse will stay happy. And I build in playful experimentation to the exercises. So it's not, again, it's that when we think about the airplane, right? It's off course, and then it's on course. Whoops, now it's off course the other way. And we gently guide it back. Whoops, went off course the other way. That's the nature of arriving at a destination, at least with airplanes. And I think with horses, it's kind of like that. We're kind of in the air, right? We're floating around. We're on these other creatures. So built into the system is this playful experimentation, this idea that precision arrives out of the possibilities that play creates. And that's so important to the learning process, the how you're going to learn dressage, because I think so many people, and this is such a shame, so many people experience dressage as a sudden degree of rigidness, right? My horse and I were just so happy together, and then I took dressage lessons and everybody gets cramped up. Right? And because people focus on the precision, they focus on the what. It's a perfect 20-meter circle. It's a perfect straight line. It's a square halt. It's a perfect posture with certain angles that are, and degrees of overtrack. They focus a lot on the what. So I created the sweet spot course I teach. Well, it's in my book. It's everywhere. It's everything I do to create healthy biomechanics, is this embracing the inherent off-coursedness. I'm making up a lot of words in this podcast. We're going to be off course most of the time. So let's embrace it. Let's play with it. Let's not force it, because somewhere in the middle of all these possibilities, we're going to pass through a moment that is on course. And, unlike an airplane, I think the horse is going to feel when we are on course. They're going to feel when we're aligned. And as they pass through not aligned and all the different versions of not healthy biomechanics, as we pass through from one side to the other, they're going to go, oh, that feels easier. And the horse, because it's a living creature, can start to seek that a little bit on its own. And then the horse creates their autopilot. And we become more and more like the pilot in there, and the plane's on autopilot. And that's what the sweet spot is. It's when the horse finds the autopilot and turns it on and does their own course corrections. And that's what enables horses that have been trained this way to send them out at liberty in a round pen or even in an arena and give them a few laps, and they'll start to stretch. They'll start to find their own healthy biomechanics because they've realized that there is a place that feels better. And so that's what the whole concept is based on. So this whole way of finding correct healthy biomechanics is very counterintuitive. I know that it is. And again, sometimes the dressage students that come in, the traditional dressage students, get a little bit like, what? And I have to give them permission to experiment. I have to give them permission to explore. But the power that comes from exploring and finding when you're off course and really knowing when you're off course, like that gives you great confidence to know when you are, instead of just, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? So it's counterintuitive, but it's really freeing. And so anyway, that's the sweet spot course. And that's how I play with the difference of the what and the how. You know what you're looking for. It's written in every dressage book. You can find those videos that draw the diagrams and tell you where your horse should be and what things are supposed to look like. But the how is not to just go straight line to it. The how is to experiment and to let the horse participate in it. Okay, so next, after the sweet spot course of healthy biomechanics, let's say we now have a horse with healthy biomechanics. We've got nice working gaits to work with. The next step is gymnastic training. So my third course is called the Upward Spiral of Successful Gymnastics. I really have to get better at shorter names of things. Anyway, it's the USS course. And again, I sat myself down and I said, all right, Karen, there's been a million books, a million videos, all set out to describe how to do a leg yield, how to do a shoulder in, what's a half pass. So what could I contribute that would be different? How could I look at where people were getting stuck? And how can I teach it in a little different way? And once again, guess what, guys? It came down to looking at the how a little bit more than the what, and thinking of having the end in mind, beginning with the end in mind. So I sat myself down and I thought to myself, all right, there's the levels, there's the dressage levels that we can follow, and that's a really great resource. Go out, get out your test booklets and see what movements come in the basic levels, and then what's the next level of movements, and what's the next level. And you can actually really learn a lot by reading through the dressage test booklet. There's a lot to be learned from that. But I also knew that horses don't usually follow that training program. And there's lots of horses that maybe found very, quote, advanced movements easy. And, I have a horse right now that can do the Grand Prix trot work and all the canter work, but still doesn't have a flying change. So, well, all the canter work except the stuff that requires, she's got really good pirouettes. She's got the piaffe passage, extension half passes, no problem at all. But not a flying change yet, not a clean one. So if I had just gone by the levels, I might not have gone on. I would have held everything back to the third level. Okay, we can't go past third level. We don't have a clean flying change yet, but what a shame. So what I realize is I don't train by level. I keep that in mind, and there's a logic to it. But often the horse in front of me, he hasn't read the test booklet. So some things are easier, some things are harder. And we don't want to hold ourselves back. I like to say, whatever you can do more of that. Keep going. Because sometimes improving something to a high degree in one area can actually help improve the other area. So So I sat down and I thought, all right, I realized when working with horses and with students, there was a moment where I thought, oh, we're totally going to get this. Right. So with a horse, I know, oh man, like we're going to do it. We have everything we need. All we need to do is build a little more coordination and strength and collectability, right? But there was a certain moment when I go, oh my gosh, like this is going to be a dressage horse. we can do it. And the same thing with a student. There's a certain moment where I feel like, oh, this student has everything that they need to know. Now we just need to add, coordination, strength, and degrees of collectability. So I thought, well, how do I know that? Because it's not just, oh, when they're first level or second level or third level. There's something else. There was a different quality. So that's what I sat down and mapped out. And as sort of evidence of this, like it's independent of the movements, because maybe you've seen, it's possible to get all the movements in Grand Prix accomplished. You can do the what, you can do the movements, but in a way that you're like, you don't even want to watch, right? And I don't mean just people who are learning, and they're just not there yet, but there's experienced riders who can get a horse to do a Grand Prix, but it doesn't have any qualities that you'd actually are going for. And I'm going to assume that if you're wanting to achieve the object of dressage, you have to be able to do it with the qualities of happiness and calmness and looseness and suppleness and flexibility and keenness, and understanding, and things like that. So let's kind of assume that's what we're going for. And before I give you the the 6 essential gymnastic abilities that I'm going to tell you, that are these things that I go, when you get these, you got it. Before I give you that, I also want to mention that, it's cumulative. So when I list these 6 abilities, implied is that we have the 9 habits of excellent horsemanship, and we have a sweet spot of healthy biomechanics with ease, that now we're adding on these gymnastic abilities. So that seemed obvious to me, but I have to remember to say that out loud. So you're bringing it, you can take it with you. You're bringing it all with you, right? It's cumulative. So we take the qualities from the horsemanship course and from the sweet spot, and then we learn how to get to the essence of some very particular gymnastic skills. And that's how I came up with the 6 essential gymnastic abilities. And I love that word essential. It kind of has 2 meanings there. It has essential, meaning you need them, but essential meaning the essence. There's the essence and the criteria. So the criteria is the what. The criteria of a gymnastic movement is what makes it recognizable. You go, hey, that person's doing a shoulder in. How do we know? Because they're meeting the criteria. There's a bend, the horse is going on 3 tracks, the shoulder has moved off the track. That's how you know. You can describe it on the phone to somebody. That is the what, the criteria. The essence is the how. The essence of a shoulder in is that there's increased engagement on the inside hind, there's bend, and the shoulders become lighter. So you can meet the criteria without meeting any of the essence. You can get it done, but you're not getting the essence. You're not getting to the reason why that gymnastic movement was created. So that's why I really want to focus on the essence of the movement. Okay, are you ready to hear the 6 essential gymnastic abilities? According to me. So you're not going to see these anywhere else, and maybe somebody else wrote a different version, but this is what I came up with, keeping in mind you're bringing the horsemanship and the sweet spot with you. So number 1, to be able to ride the difference of a circle versus a corner. Number 2, that you're able to release into an up transition. Number 3, that you're able to ride forward into a down transition. Number 4, that you're able to have bend without relying on your inside rein. Number 5, you're able to connect the inside hind to the outside shoulder, energetically and physically, in varying circumstances. And number 6, that you're able to ride into the bend. So meaning like half pass or haunches in or renvers. The horse is bent to the left, it's a lateral movement. Your horse is bent to the left and you're able to ride something sideways towards the left, for example. So I realized that if you're able to master those 6 skills, you have what you need to be able to do all of dressage with quality, potentially. You know, I mean, depends on the horse, depends on you, depends on how much focus you put in. But those, if you can master those skills are what makes a lengthening a really good lengthening, or a transition a really good transition, or a shoulder in a really good shoulder in. So there's a different art to turning for a circle, or turning even a corner as if it's part of a circle, or turning a corner like it's a corner. To be able to release into the up transition means that you've built up some potential energy and you're releasing, you're allowing the horse to go, you're not pushing during it. If you don't know how to release into an up transition, your walk to pee off is going to, you know, the way you ride your simple walk trot transitions on baby horse is going to connect directly to how your pee off passage transitions are later. To be able to ride forward into a down transition, right? To not be going, whoa, at the end of it. That a down transition is not less than, you're not holding back, but you're riding forward, you're not interrupting the flow. Again, that's going to turn into your canter pirouettes, or coming back from your extensions. It's going to directly connect into your ability to collect. Bend without inside rein means your horse is so aligned that you're not relying on that inside rein. Connecting inside hind, outside shoulder, that's going to come into play in lots of lateral work, and every, you know, in corners, it shows up everywhere. But the ability to feel that you can connect that, it's a very particular feeling. If you can get that, and if you can ride into the bend, that's a different skill set. Riding, you know, shoulder and leg yields, I find, are a different skill set than riding haunches in half pass. And so here's the good news, that these skills can be mastered in very, very basic forms. You can master all of these movements at the walk, and in a way that's just beautiful and artful, and getting to the essence of them and building some really amazing gymnastic skills just between the walk and the halt. You could walk and halt around looking like a Grand Prix rider. No one has to know. You can't do 1 tempies yet. But if you can master these at this level, at the walk, at the halt, at the walk and the trot, every transition you make, it's going to help you in a much different way than wait. You don't have to wait to have that kind of sophistication in your riding until you're doing Grand Prix. So I like to teach, like, have the same kind of sophistication of timing and quality of riding your aids, you know, now at training level, you know, going across a diagonal and riding forward to down transitions and releasing into your up transitions, doing walk to halt to walk to halt to walk to halt. How about walking 4 strides and halt, walk 4 strides, halt, walk 4 strides, halt, keeping those essential abilities of how you ride the transitions. That will help you when you're doing tempi changes later. Why wait to have that kind of sophistication and precision until you're doing tempies, right? Practice it at the walk and the halt. But if you just follow the levels, when you're training level, you're just going to be doing 20-meter circles and taking half alongside to get a transition done. So when you could be practicing at the walk, at training level, the difference between a corner and a circle, really riding forward in those transitions. You could do all the lateral positions at the halt way before you can ride them in motion. And I do that with my young horses. We start practicing halting in the position of lateral work, so that later when they're ready to actually do a shoulder in or half pass, they're like, oh, this is a nice relaxing body position. We've done the yoga shoulder in asana. All right. So I hope that just looking at how I created the courses and looking at the way I structure the information and the way I teach it, that maybe just that alone can fill in a missing piece. Because that's what I was thinking about when I created it. I thought, what are the missing pieces? How are people, what are the learning sources out there that people are reading or watching, and what are they missing? So I hope it helps you think about how you're approaching your dressage education, or whatever you're doing with your horse. And again, if you want to learn more about these programs or take part of them, just go to dressagenaturally.net, look at the top navigation. There's a one that says programs. And if you click that, you'll see all of them. So I hope that helps. Yeah, let me know. Shoot me an email, or find me on Facebook in the Dressage Naturally Land Facebook group. It's open to everybody. You just have to ask to join, but we'll let you in as long. And that's a great place to have these discussions, follow up on the podcast, ask me any more questions, and meet fellow like-minded people. So just search for Dressage Naturally Land, and hopefully we'll see you then. All right, bye.